Holy jeez, what a ride. Holy indeed. Holier than the corduroys I wore out with that last one. Even holier than the plot lines of that whole metafictional twist of fate. And now the next chapter of my impossible existence is even more unexpected than the rest of my convoluted lifestyle. I've done it all, been all over, lived inside and out, flipped life upside down, scattered all the pieces to the wind, and journeyed around as I somehow managed to put them all back together again. Only to find that once the puzzle was complete, it was merely a hint to the riddle of the opening of the next door to everything that the universe had in store for me. And now, I sit at the crossroads of 4 directions. 4 paths of potential, each with their own version of abundance. I write this as a reminder to put my trust in spirit and let the blessings unfold in an effortless flow of manifestation. That last sentence I wrote just a few minutes ago. Started. I put a short up the other day, got a first couple paragraphs of this new book, and thank you for being here on this journey with me on this book, and we're going to see how it goes, and it's exciting to have you here with me as it's coming together, So I'm at a crossroads now, currently, in this moment, in this day, this last 3 hours, and this moment that I'm in right now, of 4 directions, With our family stepping back into society, into money life, phone life, I lived forever, talking about all that whole first paragraph. I've been all over it, and it's an impossible lifestyle. I lived without money for 8 years and have done just, magnificent things, incredible things, and lived incredibly. And now we're in this journey of stepping back into jobs and money and phones and cars, and we got baby at home, and so I've been on this, trying to find the right career, job that's gonna both serve the world in a way that's important to me on my heart, but also provide, financial resources, and whether that's through the paycheck through that, or if it just somehow generates abundance in other ways, If it allows me to be able to put more energy into books, and that ends up funding it however it goes. And so I got these 4 different job prospects. I've done a bunch, and I had to put a resume together, because after you live in the dirt for years, for a decade of hitchhiking the country, working for free, you have to put it together. And I've actually got quite an extensive resume. So I got 4 totally different jobs. Similar, but. And so now I have to sit with how it's going to go, what I'm going to prioritize, how I'm going to move through that. And this whole book, I think, is going to be a lot of how to take these ideals, these values, these things that I've been able to cultivate living without money, living outside of the system, off the grid, with the earth, guided, heart-led, and finding how that goes. So, I've did this whole Earth Bag project, we managed the whole crew. So that's a project management position that I've had. So that's why, I have a resume for project manager. So, one of these jobs, just to kind of briefly fill it in, is I got a second interview tomorrow, is traveling the country installing stage rigging stuff. And so I'm, running a crew, so I would be like the crew leader of them. People were putting all together this stage rigging. So that could facilitate, they're totally open to me taking my wife and baby on the road. And to where even we could have a camper or a school bus. If you know me, that's part of our journey is outfitting a school bus to be able to travel. And they're totally open with that. And this could facilitate me taking baby and family on the road. They could, instead of paying for hotels, they could just pay our payment or what we need on to outfit our school bus. We are looking at a school bus soon. We found one that we're considering, or even a camper, or however that goes, And so it could fund, not only give us the resources that we need to survive, but then also could fund this other part that we thought was going to be several years down the road, because how could I work full time and be able to travel? But this is how. The work will be fun, it'll be dynamic. You'll be up on scissor lifts and installing and stuff, and I'd be running the crew, so they would be doing all that stuff. I would just be making sure this big puzzle goes together, and I'm great at working, in dynamic work situations and figuring out stuff on the fly. It's not necessarily on my heart to be in these type of places, you know. It's good. The arts, I love, you know, supporting the arts and so supporting these venues, putting in giant curtain rigs or the rigs where the actors fly up on the ropes. You know, it's all this like big heavy equipment that you're putting in. It's not particularly on my heart, but it's not like against my heart, you know. In juxtaposition, there's a place that's local that some family members had worked at, and so they are a manufacturing facility that build electric components, you know, stuff I'm also familiar with, 3-phase electric components, big fuse box and wire terminals and all these things. And it would be a job where I didn't have responsibility or have to think about anything. I could just go clock in and then I could clock out. Building these electric components neared by the house, 20 minutes away from the house, not having to travel. Went toward the factory and they told me, oh yeah, this is the component that we have the private contract for the data center that's going up the road, that's wrecking all the water in the area. These data centers, I mean, don't even get me started on that. You could guess how I feel about these. If we could go build the electric components for an AI data center, gee, oh yeah. This other job I'm going to be having a call about here soon, or they could call while I'm on here with you guys, I don't know. It's for a home renovation company. They renovate stuff, you know, I do a lot of that. We renovate in our own house. I can do anything pretty much. And so they need someone that is basically walks with clients through everything and takes them to go pick out the tiles. It's all about building relationships and building the, you know, you kind of follow them along with the whole project and meet with the contractors, and you're like an advocate for the person, you know, so they don't need to deal with the contractors or going to Home Depot and picking out this or that, or, you know, kind of like project managing these little things and working with the client. And I'm good at that. I'm good at building relationships, and in the end, I'm working for people that can afford to renovate their house, redo their kitchen. I can't afford to redo our kitchen. I'm using pallets to put stuff together. I'd be really good at it. Probably rather do that than facilitate the components for a data center. So, to come back to this fourth direction, something that I thought that I would be excited about, possibly, and to just imagine months ago or a year ago me being excited about some for money work position within the conventional construction industry. There's no way. But I'm open to that path unfolding. Each little step, I don't have to see the end. I just trust with each little step. So when I got a call about this job, you know, I was open to it. So it's for an assistant project manager position of some type of construction thing. I was like, all right. And I talked to the people, you know, it's through a recruiter, and they said, yeah, it's a 65 bed facility housing thing. Well, I said 65 bed, that doesn't sound like an apartment. That was more like a shelter. I said, is it something like that? She said, yeah, I think it's for the unhoused community. Oh. Sounds pretty nice. So then I had a meeting with the, you know, they were just recruiters, so they set me up with the next guy. So as I sat in the parking lot before I went in to meet with him, you know, I wrote this last part. I sit now at the crossroads of 4 directions. 4 paths of potential, each with their own version of abundance. I write this as a reminder to put my trust in spirit and let the blessings unfold in an effortless flow of manifestation. Effortless. It should feel effortless. And I just had an interview that was a 2-hour interview of me just sitting at Panera with this dude, the head of this construction consulting firm, and we just deeply connected. He runs his life spiritually led, has a bunch of kids, homeschools, has a garden stuff. If you follow me, this is, this is how I live. He was very intrigued by all my Earth Health stuff. I'm showing him pictures. He gets it. He could see the work that we did. I could see that, like, holy cow, the physical work and the mental capacity. Saw the Eagle Scout on the top of my resume. That connected with him. Saw that I work, volunteer, or do this after school thing with the YMCA. I run the cage-free mechanic, free automotive clinic. All those things are hitting. His firm only takes on projects that enrich the community. It's a for-profit thing, construction thing. That only works with projects that he believes in. He's not a money-driven person. He didn't carry a phone for 7 years. I didn't carry one for 8. Deeply connected. Effortless. Effortless. So, assistant project manager position for a $15 million transitional home in conjunction with the local mission that's there, local shelter. 4-story, 13-month project, $15 million housing development, transitional for the chronically homeless. I was building houses out of dirt for years. We built our house for $500 because everything got donated, and we used old recycled barn wood. Jeez. If you'd have told me a year ago that I would be considering being the assistant project manager working on the management team for a $15 million homeless project. Holy shit. But at the same time, of course it feels good on my heart. Gee, I'm building houses for homeless folks for free. Of course I would do that. A lot of my friends that I mentor and support, they're currently in shelters or currently in somebody's halfway house or somebody's house that is not the right place because they need that transition step. It's on my heart, Yeah, it's conventional construction. I would rather be building stuff out of dirt, but this is like that next evolution of being able to take what I've cultivated and be able to put it out in a bigger way. It takes years to build a single house out of dirt that probably wouldn't survive here because it's too wet. Pretty cool. Just all the things we talked about in there. He's a spiritually led person. He valued my spiritually led journey, and we both recognize that the only way for it to really work is for all of us to be in our authenticity. And my authenticity is out there. Gee. But I was able to talk to him, about the res or about my spiritual commitments out there. For me to take on some other job where I can't I can hold back, what leads me. That would be difficult. It's a spectrum, there's different varying levels of that. And in the end, it's a construction crew that is for profit. It's working on grants and minority-led business and through HUD and serving the unsheltered. And, it'd be a lot of paperwork. It's going to be a lot. It's not going to be me out swinging the hammer. It's going to be me being at meetings and paperwork and dressing like this, not dressing like you guys are used to seeing me. That's pretty cool. I just left there. Habaneros right next to Chipotle. So it's pretty cool. We're connected. I got a second interview. Probably next week sometime. I got an interview tomorrow with the stage rigging thing. I'm supposed to talk with the construction guy here in a minute. I probably will hear back from the data center electric company, but what a crazy world that would be. I'm just trusting in spirit. It's gonna work out, I write this as a reminder to put my trust in spirit and let the blessings unfold in an effortless flow of manifestation. There's effort involved. I do work this with the Earth House, so I was telling him, I went out to the res, I didn't have any of the materials lined up, I didn't have any of the people lined up, I hadn't even been to the site. I just trusted in the spirit, and everything did. It was effortless. It was the most amount of effort I've ever put towards anything in my life, but it was effortless. Trust in that next step. Trust that you're following your heart, your intuition. When that next step feels good, trust that, and maybe this isn't the thing. And so lots of steps have led me to this. There's been other things throughout this journey that have come up that I thought would be the right thing, and it wasn't. But it was the next step in getting me to here. So this could just be the next step in getting me to the next place, There was another job that felt like it could be the thing, so then it maybe tweaked my resume in another way, and then another one that made me shift another, and that's all brought me to this place where I presented what I had done to them, and it maybe wasn't what I would have presented at first. And maybe this is just meant to connect me with him, because he's also into off-grid homeschooling things, and that's part of our journey. Somebody, there's a YouTuber actually was talking to something that really resonated with me. So, I talk a lot about the mountain of enlightenment, right? And all these spiritual paths, and there's millions of spiritual paths that all climb up this mountain, and I got videos on that, and they merge, and some have guidebooks you can follow, and some are you're cutting your own trail, and this and that. And so then also just thinking about your own path, or maybe I'm at this crossroads where I could take these different paths, and maybe they all bring me abundance, and if I want to be stepping into my highest timeline, they say, and so we're things now when something doesn't work out, you think maybe this job is going to be it, and then that falls away, and that's not something to be upset about. That's something to celebrate, because it's lining you up, the spirit lining you up better and better with that right thing. I felt it. I've been on this whole job thing for a while. And you get one that kind of felt right, but then not quite, and then the next one felt more right, and then the next one felt more right, and it's bouncing all around. And now we're refining them. And so they described it like this, because early in my journey, years ago, you follow my stuff, I live in all this abundance, I travel the country, and everything just works out, and I don't use money for all these years, and I live in such abundance. And so that's when I was in my phase of every path, 90% of the paths being maybe. And a maybe was a maybe was a success. Maybe this Earth House thing will work out, or maybe not. I'm not committed to that. I'm in the wind. Maybe I'm hitchhiking. Maybe I'll ride to Albuquerque, or maybe if someone comes and they're riding to Washington, maybe I'll go there. Maybe, and so I'm in 90% maybe mode. So I'm always consistently and constantly having success. Because no matter what happened, that was just maybes, and maybe that will work, and maybe that will work, and whatever happened worked. Something worked out. So I manifested something that was great. It might not have been my highest timeline, but it was a pretty high timeline that could feel good, you know. It took me to incredible places. So I was in the phase of maybes. So you felt like you're riding on an incredible wave of manifestation. Stuff kept pouring in. It might not have been your highest timeline, but it was still great, incredible things. You know, you read my stuff, you know that I've done all sorts of blessed life of maybes, and those maybes worked out. But now, I've gone through that and come back out, and I'm transitioning into that highest timeline. And so this is, you know, when you just have the field of maybes, maybe you're on this mountain of enlightenment, and there's a million trails, you know. All 4 of these are maybes right now. And when you're just in the wind, however it works out, it works out. Where now I'm more clearly setting an intention, manifesting not frivolously, but specifically towards my highest timeline. And so there's less maybes. Now it's yes or no. And so instead of being 90% maybes and 10% no's, now it's 90% no's. Or maybe 99%. I don't know how math works. But so we'll say 90% no's, 10% yes. Which is good. It's bringing me to my highest timeline. So every time something doesn't work out, I don't get upset about it and down. I trust that was something that wasn't working out, that wasn't serving me, that wasn't my highest thing. So I don't want that to work out. Literally, I was on this tour with this electric component thing. I mean, already out of those 4, that's like already kind of down there. And then they said that thing about data center, and I lit up internally. I didn't say anything about it, but I was like, yes, it's a huge no. Great for like taking that off my plate. I don't have to like decide if I make an irresponsible decision by not taking the steady job that's like just right down the street. Yeah, you shot me a big no. Great. That's the most positive thing that could have happened in that moment. Now, this meeting, I didn't know what this guy was going to be like. I don't know if he's building shelters for homeless people and he's money-centric and they're going to be, like, cheaping out on, oh, it's just for the homeless people. What do they care? We could use cheap stuff or whatever. But he's not. He's not a money-driven. He's community-driven, working for spirit. It's something I can feel good about. Even if what I'm doing is just, like, pushing papers or whatever. I'm still using conventional construction methods and this and that. It's, you know, unlocking this next part of my journey, helping me to take these things I've cultivated and take them to a whole new level. You know, imagine the possibilities after this. This is a 13-month contract. I build these earth houses, and then if I get on a $15 million project where I'm doing government interfacing stuff and this and that and paperwork and pushing this through, and it's a huge success, the possibilities are endless, you know. Holy cow. It takes all of what I've cultivated to just an entirely new level of credential that I could, who knows what you could do. It's still a maybe. All of these are still maybes. So I'm still sitting with all of them. I'm still going to just genuinely be there for this second interview tomorrow when I go to their place. And I'll let everything come in. Another thing somebody was talking about recently was specifically about kind of the 3 different ways. And this isn't necessarily to say this is everybody, but talking specifically about these 3 groups. One that does everything from gathering all the facts and having to have that fact-based evidence, and one that uses none of that and uses all just a energetic thing or a feeling. And the person that runs, you know, in that middle and has both, you know, and certainly that's where I've where I landed. They were talking about life, and they were also specifically talking about writing. And certainly, if you read my writing, that's both. And yeah, so I will continue to not go through the motions, but go through the process. Trust the process. You know, Spirit has opened up these 4 particular different opportunities, possibilities. I'll go into each one of them genuinely. You know, look at the numbers. Go by the feel, you know. Felt good. Felt nice. Dude, that tip was stale. What the frick? Is that a sign? What is that sign? Yeah. Trust. Trust in Spirit. Trust in the process. Trust in yourself. You know, back that up by, you know, set yourself up for success by developing your intuition. You know, I've been doing a lot of work on my nervous system. I've been praying a lot. Now I'm just warming up, getting back out and connecting with the earth. It would be easy for me to find myself in resistance to things, and I still do. You know, that's work that I have to do, to not being resistant. So. Just let it flow. You know, and part of my journey has been being able to navigate this with and for my family. You know, it's easy. You're just a single person traveling, hitchhiking, living out of a backpack to just go with the wind. But it's harder. How to balance and navigate. Yeah, I'm gonna keep writing. You know, I don't know how this is going to go. Thought maybe you guys would be there as I was writing, and probably I'll live stream some from it, you know, but the other day, you know, it was actually right before I went into another interview, I felt the call to write and started and wrote the first paragraph, and then now today I wrote, and that, you know, I took that with me into the interview. That just trust of letting the blessings unfold in an effortless flow of manifestation. And we did. It was effortless. Me and this guy were super connected, you know. He's running $1 million projects, you know, $20, $40 million big projects, building schools, building this and that. I'm out building houses out of dirt, out in the woods. It wasn't any feel of a power dynamic. We were peers with mutual respect, because we each have done great work and have lived a heart-centered life. I'm open to the process. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for any of these other guys to beat this one. But I sit now at the crossroads of 4 directions. 4 paths of potential, each with their own version of abundance. I write this as a reminder to put my trust in Spirit, and let the blessings unfold in an effortless flow of manifestation.